I'm just going to go over her kit and summarize it so that you can understand what she does and give my thoughts on how strong I think she will be from this kit. But of course, wait on other people to do some more math, do some more theory crafting, and then we can get a better understanding on how strong she really is. So Charlotte is a cryo catalyst, our second one after Rio 3. She scales up attack percent as a 4-star. Her normal attack is just a typical normal catalyst normal attack. Interesting thing here is she's Numa aligned. So her skill, the best summary I can give you for this skill is that it's Nahida's E, but cryo. The one extra limitation that they added for this is that when you hold your E and you do your little camera swing and mark enemies, your camera frame or viewfinder here will expand until you reach a finisher frame state. I'm not too sure how it looks in game, but ideally you want to hold her E until you reach that frame state because that will increase how long the mark from her skill lasts on the enemies. Now, of course, even though she technically is Cryo Nahida, her multipliers and skill durations are not as strong as Nahida's. As you can see, her E has a 12-second cooldown, but her mark duration will have a 6-second cooldown. And in addition, if you hold her E to that finishing frame state, it will have an 18-second cooldown, but the mark duration will increase to 12. So either way, her mark will not be 100% uptime like Nahida. In addition, her multipliers aren't the best, but the biggest question mark here is whether or not that cryo application will be helpful in any teams. We all know that Nahida's Dendro application off-field is insane, but with a lower duration on Charlotte's skill and the fact that it's cryo, it might be more difficult to evaluate the strength of that. It might enable some melt teams, but we will have to know her ICDs and how much cryo she actually applies. Next, her burst is pretty simple. When she casts it, she heals her party, and it'll leave a field that continuously deals cryo damage at intervals and also heal the active character that is in that field. So she's a cryo healer, which is pretty nice. And the healing scales off her attack, and she's an attack scaler, so thank God for that. It actually synergizes. As for her talents, her first talent is when enemies die and they are still marked, it will decrease the cooldown of her E. This helps in her skill downtime, but you have to rely on enemies dying, which you can't really do that with high HP enemies. Next, her second talent is interesting. When she has other Fontaine members other than herself, she gains healing bonus, but for non-Fontaine members, she gets cryo damage bonus. So if you want to focus on her healing, perhaps pair up with other Fontaine members, but otherwise she'll get damage. I guess it's a fun thing. I'm not sure how strong she will be if you build her for damage, but well, we'll see. And lastly, she has a special passive where she can take special photos or something. Might be interesting. Not sure how that completely works, but hey, well, maybe we'll see in the upcoming days. Quick Eidolon overview. C1, whenever her ult field heals your on-field character for that tick, it will heal them again based on her attack, so I guess extra healing. C2, when Charlotte's skill marks enemies, she will gain increased attack. C3 increases her ult talent level. C4, whenever her ult field hits an enemy that's already marked with her E, it will do more damage and regenerate 2 extra energy to Charlotte. C5 increases her skill talent level. And lastly, C6 makes it so that when characters hit an enemy that's marked with Charlotte's E, there will be a coordinated attack from Charlotte that deals extra cryo damage. So just extra cryo app every so often. Whether or not that's helpful, I would say remains to be seen. So overall, I don't think any of her constellations really buffs her in a way, for example, like C6 does for Farazan and Goro and stuff. A lot of her constellations boost her damage, but I'm not sure whether or not she will actually deal a lot of damage. So I think I would personally focus on her supporting capabilities and her cryo application. Going with that in mind, for weapon recommendations, I think my initial thought is Favonius Codex. I think it's really easy, just free energy. There might be other choices like TTDS, but I think Favonius Codex would be really good on her. As for relic sets, this is kind of difficult to tell. She might like Tenacity of the Militive as a support set. Maybe you want to go Emblem for energy recharge, maybe a 2-piece attack percent, maybe even Noblesse. I think it's hard to tell for now, but I think Tenacity might be her best supporting option because of the fact that her E can proc it pretty well. As for artifact stats, probably ER, attack percent, and then crit rate for Favonius. Maybe cryo damage if you want her to deal actual damage. Those are my initial thoughts, but probably have to wait a little longer to see how good her supporting capabilities are and or how good her damage is. So we'll probably have to wait for people to calc that. So Charlotte is definitely an interesting character. I think there's a lot of question marks for me on whether or not she'll be actually really good or not. She definitely fulfills her own niche through cryo application with her E, but I'm not too sure whether or not you should focus on her healing and her supporting capability, or maybe her damage is good enough so that you build her for damage. My gut instinct tells me to just focus on her supporting capability, but maybe I'm wrong, maybe the calcs show otherwise. But luckily, I don't think she's one of those dead 4-star characters. I think she will have a place because she is a cryo catalyst that has off-field cryo application, which might be helpful in some teams.